We're back at the Genzio Media House, and this time I'm with Richard Muirhead from Fabric Ventures. Richard, how are you?
I'm good. That's 5, 6 days in. I've just about recovered from waking up at 2 o'clock every morning, and about 4 hours behind today. But that's kind of par for the course here, isn't it?
Yeah. How's Eat Denver going for you? You got here a few days ago. Have you seen anything interesting? How's
It's good. As I said, I've been sort of waking up pretty early, which means actually it's been surprisingly workable. Kind of like work a London day and then work a Denver day, and then sleep for like 3 or 4 hours and then sort of go for it again. I mean, I've seen a lot of chatter on X, Twitter, about the vibes out here, and I think obviously everybody's influenced not just by the sunshine but by the price swings. But I think beyond that, everybody seems there's a lot of positivity, a lot of people getting down and building stuff. What have I been doing? We had a great session on stablecoins with Solana and Circle and with PayPal and with Ledger. That was pretty interesting. I think the conclusion was, we're just at the beginning of the shift towards, multi-collateral, truly kind of, supranational global reserve currency. This is just the baby steps, having, USDC and so forth sort of adopted. I think there was excitement about that. We were glad that folks like PayPal and Circle are bearing the brunt of the regulatory requirements. That was cool. Very impressed by a lot of the work going on at Solana and very impressed actually by the desire to make sure that there's true interoperability of use of stablecoins and payments across different ecosystems, because that's when it's going to really unlock. So that's been exciting. And I think we were at the Unstable Summit as well, which Julien, the State Capital crew, were running, trying to get across this idea that we don't want TradFi, we don't want kind of banks and oil barons to be the ones who in command of the biggest, most valuable companies in the world. We don't want to just wrap sort of TradFi in software. It's kind of a good, like a Monzo or Revolut or whatever. So it's a step forward. It makes it a bit easy to use, but it's not really a revolution, ironically. And we don't. And the point of DeFi, despite the kind of how contagious and kind of enriching for some people, at least, the kind of world casino has become. The point is not, it's not DeFi for DeFi. These are all kind of experiments in what it is possible to do in building these kind of trustless protocol-based financial systems. It's really about what we would call kind of shifting to kind of NoFi. And that message has resonated, I think, quite a bit. And what we kind of mean by it is that, you want to get up and you want to buy a coffee, you want to, save for your house, run your life, but it's not about the financial transaction or the credit. It's about what you get out of it in life. And if we can push financial services properly into service for us like that, then we'll have really achieved something. We'll really then empower, everybody, hopefully more inclusively around the world. So that's been, I think that's been interesting, kind of trying to explore that with people. And we're always looking for use cases in Web3. Stablecoins are one. Yeah, it's surpassed Visa, MasterCard. It's tens of trillions of settlement and using stablecoins. That's adoption. So I think that's cool. And then we were hosted at the RSS3 sort of venue, which I'm not sure if it was a hacker house or a kind of just something that kind of thrown together for the event. Bit of a combination of the two. Very interesting. I also seen like lots of people commenting. Actually, someone saying like, basic mistake: do not put your panel right next to the kitchen, next to the bathroom, next to the entranceway. This is gonna be a recipe for disaster. Big fail, and nobody can hear. But anyway, it was very contained. People were respectful, and they were talking about kind of open information, and how those open systems can operate, what that means for for governance and so forth. But so we can dive into some of that as well. So I'm just recollecting these are the things we've been involved in. I think it's pretty interesting.
It's super interesting. I think it would be really interesting for everyone listening to hear a little bit about your background. You're gonna have to make it like really compact because you've been in the industry for so long. I think it would be really interesting to have the context of how you started in the industry and how you came all the way till Fabric Ventures.
Sure, I'll try and make it compact for sure. So I guess, so I built I did some engineering. I built a software company that was sort of building the IP network from the mid 90s and through. We kind of got involved in the .com boom and did IPO and stuff. Felt like I'd done pretty much the whole journey before I was 30, mostly the mistakes. And then the second company just happened to try and address the challenge of getting really knowledgeable people to share their capabilities in the context actually of managing data centers, complex sort of data centers, so that you broke out of kind of these very kind of balkanized fiefdoms of knowledge where people held on to their knowledge because that meant they'd held on to their job, and persuade them to actually share their knowledge and encode their knowledge and kind of augment what they would their activity using very primitive kind of machine learning, basically. So that ultimately you build a network, a database, and some automation, a network that achieves much more. So you break out of the local optimum, you bring something much bigger, and you run things more efficiently, effectively. And it was kind of a part of a move towards the cloud was what we were involved in. A company called Tideway, but the reason I mention that is because for me, I sort of saw some of these challenges of how do we really, connect humans to software networks and get us to collaborate to solve complex problems to our kind of, collective benefit. And so when I stumbled into Bitcoin 2009, actually, and then properly the concept of DAOs in 2013, reading about them as DAX, and then Vitalik's article about DAOs, it just the sort of light bulb went on for me. That was going to be the future, that we were going to really be able to codify in really interesting ways the way we can work together, incentivize people to do that. That was one of the things we'd wrestled with in that. My second company, we always thought Facebook was about to come out with its own kind of currency and whatever. And so then it went off, and I just thought it's so crazy, it just might work, and that's be such a fun thing to be involved in. And I wanted to, at that point, I was shifting from building a software company to trying to build a firm that backed other founders from the beginning and through. And one of my sort of experiences from building companies is that it's really good to have a focus and to have a wave. It's hard to surf without a wave. It's hard to do an excellent job unless you can really say no to stuff like this. And I just decided at that point that was going to be it. So that's kind of how. And I have to give credit. I was catalyzed into action. Well, partly by getting married and have a child and realized I really needed to build something, but also by my good friend Stephen Waterhouse, who in 2013 was co-founding Pantera Capital, coming out of Fortress, and so that gave me a kind of a leg up, a visibility, and as I said, a catalyst for getting going. So that's kind of how it happened at the beginning. Was that compact enough? Probably not.
That was, yeah, and I learned stuff. I mean, I already knew a little bit of your background, but I learned a few things here. Did you ever hesitate in this industry? Like, was there a moment where you're like, maybe?
No, I mean, it's when prices are down, we're all just like, naked third chimpanzees and ruled by our emotions. And like when the prices are down and it feels just like, you're walking through treacle or whatever, then that can be dispiriting, even though it's not what you're meant to be thinking about. It can. And you don't want to believe what people say, like the internet is just a fad, and I'd never come at it. I'd always come at it I'd lived through the LAMP stack, kind of, Linux, Apache, MySQL and, PHP, Python, whatever. I'd lived through that stack for for the first wave of the web, and there was this dream of not just building these kind of readable, magazines, marketing brochures, to overly trivialize them, but not just doing that, but building something that where the machines could talk to the other machines. They understood what was codified. They understood the meaning of what was codified, and it was called at the time by Tim Berners-Lee. It was called the Semantic Web. And so again, one of the light bulbs went off for me. It's like, wow, okay, this is basically building the semantic web. And you can get into a whole, ironically, or in a meta sense, a semantic debate about, because that was meant to be, actually, the semantic web was meant to be Web 2, then Web 2 became the read-write web, and then, but semantic web then consequently was really Web 3, but other people say that's not Web 3, it's something else. I think that was how I came at it. And so what I'm meaning to say is that I came at it from a, it's a stack being built that enables, superpowers its ability to get people to organize around collective benefit. That's basically how all of the most amazing, it's the only way that how the most amazing and revolutionary things in the world have ever happened. And it, in principle, is the way in which we can address the most lofty challenges that we have around health or whatever, academic collaboration of other descriptions. So it sounds like, so I never really kind of doubted that we'd get there, but it always takes longer in the short term and happens quicker in the long term. So,
Yeah. As the excitement this year is building up again, what is exciting you this year?
Well, people seem to be definitely into kind of AI x crypto, and they're definitely into kind of eigenlayer. And I think that's, both very justifiable. I would say that, so we have this, I think this has been coming a long while, but we have this kind of notion that you can end up with sort of this inversion of the structure of how sort of marketplaces and platforms work. So rather than you have the power being in the platform of Facebook or an Amazon or what have you, that in lots of different instances in that kind of commerce area, commerce and loyalty and so forth with payments embedded, that you can have marketplaces and networks where the platform is the people. So each individual person, the collective of people, and that they, to use the kind of DAO parlance, can be summoned, maybe, not instantaneously, but, summoned to serve whatever particular purpose that they want to serve. It's like back in the Internet Engineering Task Force days, it was birds of a feather flock together. They can flock together. So you get those social networks, spontaneous social networks with finance baked into it. And so I think the power of those, I think some people are calling them headless or leaderless kind of networks or marketplaces as well, is quite potent. It's a new toolkit for addressing, different commerce opportunities, loyalty opportunities, so forth. It could be in culture, it could be more in some consumer goods. So I think that's pretty interesting, and people can kind of build on those capabilities, which are getting more and more mature. And maybe at the intersection of that, there's, we work a lot with the NEAR Foundation. I'm on the lucky enough to serve on the council there, but there's one app there that's got really high level of use, and you can see that on DApp Radar, which is Cosmos, and that kind of combines sort of commerce and recommendations built on AI with kind of super, we can outstrip Stripe, cost-effective embeddable payments capabilities, and so that brings together that whole sort of Web3 commerce and loyalty side of things and AI together in one. And I think, I tweeted yesterday sort of commending Ilya from NEAR for his work, because he's got this background of having been, one of the authors of the transformer paper. But also, slightly saying, I think that the Web3 community, crypto community, hasn't been as visionary as I would normally give it credit for, with being comfortable with the fact that I think that Web3, crypto and AI are kind of very hand in glove. The touch points around the importance of openness, around decentralized governance, around incentive structures that can be driven by tokens for sharing your data, And if we include things like ZK as part of Web3, privacy protection, all of these things are vital, that you get this kind of balancing yin and yang between the, tyrannical centralizing forces of AI and the kind of more, libertarian and decentralizing forces of Web3. And so that we actually know the provenance of our data. I mean, I think it's a well understood sort of push. Relatively easy to say, harder obviously to build the products around it. But I think that's going to be very exciting, and it's going to be, it's going to be a fundamental transformation, shift away from algorithms recommending us to buy some product we don't really need on Amazon, or sending us an advert for something on Instagram that I end up buying and not needing, through to actually having agents that can engage with the world on our behalf, and we give permission to them to get what we need from the digital world. In exchange for our data, in exchange for our value, and so forth, and that the concept of the app, it disappears, because you only need an app because you as a human need to intervene to tell the digital world that you need a certain set of functionality in that moment. But if the digital world already knows what you need and how you like it, and it knows your context of where you are, it can just serve up that experience at that point in time, and you can just choose, whether or not you accept it. So you express your intentions, and then you open yourself through that.
Reminds me of the rabbit product. Have you seen that? Yeah.
I haven't tried it, but it looks. I mean, exactly. I think
sounds exactly like what you were describing.
It's gonna move in that direction, and obviously that's a big thing, because we're used to. It's only been a short while, 15 years or so, but we're used to the App Store and the 30% rake from Apple, and we're used to thinking about the phone. And I'm not sure the phone's going to go away. It'll probably become part of that anyway. But I think it's a big shift, and with lots of excitement, but a lot of components to be built there. So I've seen the buzz, as I said, and I think we definitely would want to contribute to that buzz. Yeah.
Ethenver onboards new talent every year, and a lot of this talent will turn out to be founders. What advice would you have for these new founders?
Look, I'm not sure that I'm clever enough to give anything particularly unique as advice, but I'll shoot from the hip. I mean, well, here's the stuff that I feel like I've done wrong. I think that think big. You can never be really thinking too big. But start really, really small and get the hell on with it. So move fast. I've never done that enough, I think, all three of those things. And then in order to make that possible, be sort of totally brutal with focus. Kind of like, focus is to startups as location is to property. It's all about focus. So I think that's key. And then, the other ones, they're kind of the standard recommendations, but the average relationship with your investor is going to last longer than the average marriage. And the average relationship with your co-founders, hopefully, possibly even longer than that. So, choose carefully, maybe choose more carefully than you choose your partner for your marriage. I guess if you had kids, you still got those relationship afterwards. But anyway, so I think that's pretty important. Get going, learn by doing. That's a part of the kind of, I was actually talking to some folks today. I won't kind of out them, but they're wanting to start some, building some stuff in a certain ecosystem. And I think they know what to build, but there might be 4 things they want to build, and maybe they raise 10, 20 million to do it. At the end of the day, I think I like to think the one thing I said, I'd love to work with them on this, was just find one thing and one developer and take the small amount of money and get going. And then everything becomes so much more real for yourself and for everybody. And then you can have, once you've got the flywheel going a little bit, you can have the next conversation. So yeah, those things, they're all kind of fairly generic, I think, to startups land, but I think
maybe at the core, yeah. Do you think that the wireframe of Web3 crypto is already in place, or are there still gaps that need to be filled?
I mean, for certain, there are still gaps that need to be filled, and in different ecosystems. I think until you have apps where, like Cosmos and others, where you truly have no idea that you're really using Web3, that and those are prevalent, and it's easy for people to develop them. And preferably in that case, there was a little bit of a marriage of a kind of an existing Web2 property with Web3. Then I think there's clearly a gap. It's just it's too tricky to develop. It's and it's still too complex. You need to have too much awareness of the Web2 equivalent would be, which cloud am I running on? That's so I think it's like that, and then. There's a big move amongst folks like Eigenlayer and Near and others to try and deliver on, should we say, the chain abstraction narrative, which is related to that, not having to know where your data or compute or whatever is all kind of residing or being executed, and I think that that's still at the stage though that making that work effectively, is complex to describe, let alone complex, to do. I've seen, again, various folks throwing around tutorials for Eigenlayer. So like, now I think I finally understand how it works. And then that's kind of just the beginning of the story. And I think maybe I'll say this, that the, having token economics and having the possibility of having tokens attached to projects, so some people out there have said, I think it would be okay with me saying this, but Hasiba Dragonfly said, it feels like token economics are further away from kind of a realistic proposition than they've been before. I find myself continuously optimistic about that. It just makes sense to me that, if we can provide incentives, both carrot and stick, to individuals to do things, that we can bootstrap these networks into existence, and they can, and we can have value in those tokens. I once described that, that kind of infinite, that broad sort of design universe as the reason why I thought there was an opportunity there, to somebody who was a sort of bit of a Bitcoin maximalist, and he told me it was the worst possible investment thesis he'd ever heard. I think so far at least, it feels like it still has legs. But I mention that because I think it's good that it continues, because there's a lot of basic infrastructure to be built, and if there aren't routes of funneling, incentivizing capital to come in to build that infrastructure, that then begets more applications, that then begets the need for more infrastructure, then we can't get that whole cycle of app infrastructure going. But on the downside, because that has the definition of success, and in every startup you have to resist the definition of success being that I have fundraised, or actually IPOs often go, hey, our destination is an IPO. You talk to anybody who's done it, IPOs are not a destination. They're just a kind of milestone on a journey. You need to be going somewhere else. You'll never have a successful IPO if it is your destination. But that has pervaded the Web3 space. So folks have taken their eye off the ball in terms of really obsessing at a granular level with the product market fit and the usability. And so I think more and more people are doing that. I can see that directly in projects. And I think that will, as well as the greater capability in the stack, the high levels of abstraction, those underlying sort of building blocks, that will deliver kind of markedly, significantly better experiences in the next phase. But it's going to require some work and some real focus. It's not like just ship some tech, launch a token.
For everyone that wants to keep following your ideas, where can they find you?
I don't tweet enough, possibly. but a little bit, but I have done a little bit more. But yeah, I'm on at Richard Muirhead. I'm pretty much on at Richard Muirhead everywhere. Walkcast, Twitter, LinkedIn, Telegram. So happy to hear from people.
Great. Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mia.